Everything can change in a single quiet moment. Maybe you've been taught that transformation takes years, that you have to work tirelessly, meditate for hours, heal every wound, and check off every spiritual box before life finally rewards you. Maybe you've believed that breakthrough only comes after you've suffered enough, that somehow, pain is the price of awakening. But what if that's not true? What if the real shift, the one that changes everything, happens so quietly, so subtly, that most people miss it completely? It doesn't come with fireworks or a loud announcement. There's no cosmic drum roll, no sudden explosion of light. It comes in stillness, in a single breath, in that soft, unassuming moment when you stop fighting, stop forcing, stop trying to control everything, and the world, almost magically, begins to rearrange itself around you. We live in a society that glorifies struggle. We've been conditioned to believe that if something doesn't feel hard, it must not be valuable. Complexity is praised. Effort is romanticized. We are taught to chase, to hustle, to prove our worth through endless doing. And so, when something feels simple, almost too simple, we distrust it. We think, this can't be it. It has to be harder than this. But the universe doesn't speak the language of effort. It speaks the language of energy. It doesn't care how hard you've tried, how long you've worked, or how many techniques you've mastered. The universe responds only to the clarity of your vibration, the purity of the signal you're sending out in this very moment. Think about a river for a moment. A river doesn't need to fight to find its way to the ocean. It doesn't demand proof that it's flowing in the right direction. It simply moves, effortlessly, carried by something far greater than itself. But what happens when we, as human beings, step into that river and try to push the water upstream? What happens when we thrash and fight against the current? We create turbulence. We exhaust ourselves, and worst of all, we forget that the flow was always there to guide us, if only we would let go. That's what most of us are doing with our lives. We keep fighting the current, trying to force reality into the shape we think it should take. We call this hard work, or manifesting, or fixing ourselves. But really, it's just resistance dressed up as virtue. True transformation doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from letting go, from releasing the belief that change has to be complicated, from daring to trust in the quiet space inside you, where no effort is required and no proving is necessary. The ego hates this idea. The ego thrives on noise, on drama, on the endless cycle of problems to solve and battles to fight. It wants things to be complex because complexity gives it a sense of importance, but simplicity terrifies the ego, because if it really is this simple, then what does that say about all the years you spent struggling? What does that mean for the identity you built around being the one who tries so hard? And so, most people turn away from simplicity. They sabotage their own awakening, not because they're broken, but because the quiet truth feels too vulnerable, too exposed. But here's the thing: simplicity is not weakness. It's power in its purest form. It's like sunlight streaming through a window after a long, stormy night. Nothing flashy, nothing loud, and yet it changes everything it touches. Today, I want to invite you to step out of the storm and into that light, to set down the heavy armor of effort and just listen. Because in that listening, you'll discover something extraordinary. The shift you've been chasing has been here all along. It was never about adding more techniques or proving your worth to the universe. It was always about coming home to the truth of who you are. And that journey, as strange as it sounds, begins not with doing more, but with doing less. So as we go deeper together, I want you to remember this. The universe isn't waiting for you to try harder. It's waiting for you to be clearer. Clear in your energy, clear in your presence, clear in the frequency you hold. And when you reach that clarity, when you allow yourself to stop thrashing in the river and instead float with the current, life itself begins to flow in ways you could never have orchestrated. It all starts with a moment of stillness, a moment so simple, most people never see it for what it truly is. But if you can see it, if you can trust it, that moment will change everything. 1. Simplicity is the door. But the ego fears to step through. There is a moment on this path that feels both liberating and terrifying. The moment when you realize that the way forward is far more simple than you ever imagined. For years, maybe even decades, you've been taught that change has to be difficult, that you must fight for every inch of progress, suffer to prove you deserve happiness, and carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Complexity becomes a kind of comfort. It gives you something to do, something to fix, something to strive toward. But then you begin to glimpse a truth so quiet, so unassuming, that it almost feels impossible. It doesn't have to be this hard. And that realization, it shakes the very foundation of who you think you are. The ego doesn't know what to do with simplicity. It panics, because simplicity leaves it with nowhere to hide. You see, the ego builds its identity out of stories. Stories about your past, the wounds you've endured, the struggles you've overcome. Stories about your future, the goals you must reach, the things you must achieve to finally feel complete. These stories become like a fortress. Even when they bring you pain, they also give you a sense of control, a feeling of, at least I know who I am, at least I know what comes next. Simplicity, on the other hand, sweeps all of that away. It whispers, you are not your stories. You are not the struggle. It invites you to step into the present moment, naked and undefended, with no role to play and no battle to fight. And for most people, that invitation feels unbearable. Because if it truly is this simple, if all you need to do is let go, then what does that mean about the years you spent suffering, hustling, proving? What does it say about the identity you've built on being the one who fights, who overcomes, who survives? This is why so many of us turn away from simplicity, not because we don't want peace, but because peace feels foreign. It feels like a void. We've become so accustomed to the noise of the mind that silence feels threatening. It's like standing in a dark room for years and suddenly being led outside into the sunlight. The brightness is overwhelming at first. You squint, you flinch. Part of you wants to run back into the familiar darkness, even though it kept you small and cold. That is what happens when simplicity appears. The ego retreats. It clings to old habits, to the drama of too busy and too complicated, because drama feels safer than stillness. And so, without realizing it, we sabotage our own growth. We return to the same exhausting loops, not because we are broken, but because we are scared. Scared of what life might look like without all the stories. Scared of who we might be without the endless striving. Scared of the quiet truth that maybe, just maybe, we were always enough. Here's the thing. Simplicity doesn't erase your past. It doesn't make the years of effort meaningless. Those years brought you to this doorway. They gave you the strength to see it. But now, you face a choice. Will you keep carrying the weight of every old narrative? Or will you set it down and walk through? Stepping into simplicity is like setting down a heavy backpack after a long journey. At first, you might feel uneasy without the weight. You might even reach back for it, thinking, I must have forgotten something. Surely, I'm supposed to keep carrying this. But then, slowly, you begin to notice how light you feel, how free. And in that freedom, you start to realize that life was never asking you to prove yourself. It was simply waiting for you to stop resisting, to stop adding layers of complexity to something that was always meant to flow. Simplicity is the door, but it will never drag you through. You must choose to step across the threshold yourself. And when you do, you'll discover that the silence you once feared isn't empty at all. It's full of clarity, full of love, full of the spaciousness where new life can bloom. It's the place where you finally see that you don't need to fight for your worthiness. You simply need to be. The ego will resist. It will whisper, "This is too easy. You must keep trying." But the soul knows better. The soul knows that the simplest path is often the truest one, the path that leads you home. 2. The moment before the leap, when everything falls apart. There's a peculiar moment that comes right before a great shift in your life, a moment so disorienting and raw that it can easily be mistaken for failure. It's the space between who you were and who you are becoming, the bridge between the old and the new. In this space, nothing feels solid. The things you used to depend on begin to crumble. The dreams you once chased may suddenly feel empty. Even your sense of self, the you thought you knew so well, starts to dissolve like sand slipping through your fingers. It can feel terrifying. You look around and everything seems to be unraveling. Relationships may shift or end. Long-held beliefs might no longer make sense. Plans that felt certain just weeks ago may now seem completely out of reach. And in that chaos, the mind screams, "Something's gone terribly wrong. I'm losing everything." But here's the truth. Nothing is wrong. This unraveling is not a punishment. It's not proof that you've failed or that the universe has abandoned you. It is, in fact, the final stage of preparation. Think of it like this. Before a seed can grow into a tree, the outer shell must break apart. It has to surrender to the dark, moist soil and allow itself to decompose so that new life can emerge. If you were to look only at that moment of breaking, you might think the seed was dying. You might grieve for it, not realizing that this very destruction is the beginning of its transformation. The same is true for us. When your old patterns, identities, and attachments start to fall away, it feels like loss. It feels like the ground is disappearing beneath you. But what's really happening is that your energy is recalibrating. The old frequency, the one that matched the old version of you, can no longer carry you forward. It's like tuning a radio. To hear a new station clearly, you must first leave behind the static of the old one. That static is uncomfortable. It's noisy. It makes you doubt yourself, but it's also temporary. It's just a sign that you are moving into alignment with something new. Here's the challenge in this transitional space. The ego goes into overdrive. It tries to make sense of the chaos by clinging to control. It will tell you to fight, to fix, to rush back to what feels familiar. It will convince you that if things are falling apart, you must be doing something wrong. And this is where many people turn back. They abandon the path right at the threshold of their breakthrough, mistaking the signs of transformation for signs of failure. But if you can understand what's truly happening, you will see this moment for what it is, a sacred dismantling. It is the clearing away of everything that no longer serves you, making space for the life that is waiting to be born. So, what do you do in this space? You resist the urge to run. You breathe. Even when the air feels heavy with uncertainty, you stay present. Even when every part of you wants to escape into old habits and distractions. This is not about passivity. It's about trust. Trusting that the collapse you feel is actually a recalibration. Trusting that the confusion is the mind's way of reacting to the unfamiliar, not a sign that you've made a mistake. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast ocean at night. You can't see what lies ahead. The waves are loud, the darkness deep, but somewhere within, you sense that if you take one more step, the tide will carry you to a new shore. That step requires courage, not because the ocean is dangerous, but because it is unknown. When everything falls apart, you are being asked to step into that ocean of the unknown, to surrender to a process bigger than your mind can comprehend, to let the old dissolve, even if you don't yet know what the new will look like. It's not easy. Your hands may tremble, your voice may shake, your heart may break a little as you release what you once thought was permanent. But on the other side of that release is freedom. A lighter, clearer, truer version of you is waiting, one who is no longer weighed down by outdated stories and expired dreams. So, when you find yourself in the space where everything feels like it's falling apart, remember this: you are not breaking down, you are breaking open. The world you once knew must crumble so that a new one can emerge, and your only task is to stay still enough, present enough, trusting enough to let it happen. Because when you stop running, you realize something beautiful. The very ground you thought you were losing was never holding you up in the first place. It was your own soul, quietly carrying you toward the life you were always meant to live. 3. The moment of acceptance. A bridge between two realities. There comes a point in every deep transformation when the fight simply fades. Not because you've won the battle, but because you finally see that there was never a battle to begin with. Up until this moment, life might have felt like a constant struggle, pushing, pulling, striving to fix what felt broken, to control what felt unpredictable. You may have spent years trying to shape reality with sheer willpower, believing that if you could just push hard enough, you could bend the world to match your desires. But there is a quiet, profound moment when something shifts inside you. You stop grasping, you stop demanding, and for the first time, you accept things as they are, not with resignation. Not because you've given up, but because you've glimpsed a deeper truth. Reality doesn't need your constant interference to evolve. This acceptance isn't loud or dramatic. It's not an act of surrender that looks heroic from the outside. It's more like a soft exhale after years of holding your breath. It's the gentle unclenching of your hands when you realize you've been gripping life too tightly, leaving no room for grace to flow in. In that stillness, something extraordinary happens. The walls you've built with fear and doubt begin to dissolve. The constant noise of the mind quiets down, like a storm finally passing. And beneath all of that, you find a spaciousness you didn't know was possible. A space where new frequencies, new possibilities, can enter without resistance. It is in this space that transformation truly begins. Acceptance is not passive. It doesn't mean you stop caring or that you approve of everything exactly as it is. It means you no longer waste your precious energy fighting what already exists. You stop arguing with reality. You stop resisting the present moment. Think of it like standing at the edge of a flowing river. When you fight the current, you exhaust yourself, splashing and kicking, always on the verge of drowning. But when you stop fighting and allow the water to hold you, you discover that the river was never trying to hurt you. It was always carrying you forward. Acceptance is like that. It's the realization that life is already moving, already unfolding, with or without your struggle. The more you resist, the more tangled and painful the journey becomes. The moment you release that resistance, you begin to move with the current instead of against it. This is why acceptance is such a powerful bridge between the old and the new. Your old self, the one built on control, fear, and effort, cannot step into the next chapter. That version of you was shaped by survival, by the need to manage every detail, but your new self lives in trust. It thrives in harmony with the natural flow of life. To cross that bridge, you must first pause and say, "I don't need to control this anymore." That single acknowledgement creates an opening. It's like opening a window in a stuffy room and letting fresh air pour in. The fears that once felt so loud begin to lose their power. The doubts that kept you small start to fade into the background. And in their place, there is a quiet knowing, a sense that you are being held by something larger than your mind can comprehend. I've seen this moment in my own life, and it never fails to humble me. It often comes after a long period of struggle, right when you think you've reached your breaking point. It's as if life waits until you've exhausted every attempt to force an outcome, and then gently whispers, "There is another way." And when you listen, truly listen, you realize that acceptance doesn't weaken you. It empowers you, because in accepting what is, if you stop scattering your energy on battles, you can't win. You stop leaking your strength into resistance. All of that energy comes back to you. And suddenly, you have the clarity to step forward with grace instead of force. This is the silent but powerful bridge between two realities. On one side is the old you, carrying heavy burdens of fear, control, and tension. On the other side is the version of you who walks lightly, guided by trust, open to the unknown. The bridge is built the moment you choose to accept, not just in words, but deep in your being. When you take that step, the shift doesn't explode into being. It unfolds softly, like dawn, breaking after a long night. And you realize that all along, the universe wasn't waiting for you to do more. It was waiting for you to let go, so that life itself could finally reach you. 4. The difference between manifesting and shifting. There's a quiet but profound difference between manifesting and shifting. And understanding it can change the way you experience your entire life. For many of us, manifesting has been taught as a kind of wish-making process. You think of something you want. You visualize it. You repeat affirmations. You make vision boards, and you wait for that thing to arrive. On the surface, this practice can feel empowering, but if you look deeper, you'll often find that manifesting starts from a very particular place, a sense of lack. When you manifest, you are trying to bring something in that you believe you don't yet have. Even if your words are positive, the very act of reaching says, "It's not here yet. I need to get it. I need to create it." And so, beneath the beautiful imagery and inspiring rituals, there can be a subtle vibration of longing, of separation. It's like standing on one side of a window, pressing your hands against the glass, looking at something you desire but cannot quite touch. There's nothing wrong with manifesting. It's a step many people take on their spiritual journey. But here's the truth. Most of us eventually face, as long as you are operating from that vibration of not having, you keep reinforcing the same reality. You keep telling the universe, "I am the one who wants, not the one who already has." Shifting, on the other hand, comes from a completely different state of being. Shifting is not about pulling something toward you. It's about stepping into the version of yourself that already exists in another timeline, a version where what you desire is already complete, already natural, already yours. This can sound abstract at first, almost like a dream, but it's much simpler than it seems. Imagine a radio. Right now, hundreds of stations are broadcasting in your city. You can't hear them all at once, but they are all there, filling the air with sound. To listen to one station, you don't need to create it. You don't need to beg the radio waves to show up. You simply tune your dial to the frequency of the station you want to hear. The same is true for your life. Every potential version of you, the joyful one, the abundant one, the deeply peaceful one, already exists. You don't have to make it happen. You only have to align your vibration with the version of reality where that you already lives. This is the heart of shifting. It's not about time, effort, or even willpower. It's about resonance. When you shift, you stop thinking like the version of you who is waiting, hoping, striving. You start being the version of you who already embodies what you desire. And here's the beautiful thing: when you truly feel that alignment, life begins to rearrange itself without force. The people, opportunities, and experiences that match your new frequency start to appear not because you manifested them, but because you finally tuned into the timeline where they were always present. The difference can be subtle at first, but you'll feel it in your body. Manifesting often feels like reaching, like stretching forward into the future. It carries a certain tension, even if you're excited. Shifting, by contrast, feels like relaxing into something already here. It's deeply calm, deeply natural, like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. I've lived through this difference myself. For years, I tried to manifest change. I worked tirelessly, repeating affirmations, visualizing my ideal life. And while some things did improve, there was always a sense of chasing, of never quite arriving. It wasn't until I discovered shifting that I understood why the version of me who was manifesting was still tied to the story of not having. She was still whispering to the universe, "I don't have it yet. Please bring it to me." But when I began to shift, when I started to embody the energy of the person who already had peace, already had abundance, already had freedom, something clicked. I no longer needed to reach for the dream, because I became the dream. And that's when everything changed. Doors opened effortlessly. Connections formed in ways I couldn't have planned. Life began to mirror the new frequency I was holding. Not because I forced it, but because reality had no choice but to reflect who I had become. The bridge between manifesting and shifting is not built on time or effort. It is built on vibration. In every moment, you are broadcasting a signal through your thoughts, your feelings, your very state of being. The universe responds to that signal, not to your words or wishes. When your signal says, "I am complete, I am aligned, I already am," reality echoes that back to you. So, if you've been manifesting and wondering why things feel slow or inconsistent, it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's simply an invitation to go deeper, to stop reaching, and start being, to shift from longing to belonging, to stop pressing your hands against the glass, and finally walk through the door into the life that was waiting for you all along. 5. The role of attention and the observer effect. There is a quiet power within you that is shaping your life in every moment. Whether you realize it or not, it's not your words. It's not even your actions. It's where you place your attention. According to quantum physics, nothing exists in a fixed form until it is observed. Everything, every possibility, every potential exists in a state of pure energy, like a sea of infinite outcomes. It is only when something is observed that it collapses into a physical reality. This is known as the observer effect, and while scientists study it in the realm of particles and experiments, it plays out in the deepest corners of our everyday lives. Your attention is not passive. It's not just watching life unfold. It is an active choice, a creative force that decides which version of reality will take shape. Every time you focus on something, whether it's love or fear, hope or doubt, you are essentially selecting a timeline, like a hand reaching into that sea of possibilities and pulling one strand into form. Your attention acts like a lens, and wherever that lens rests, reality begins to solidify. But here's the thing. Most people don't realize scattered attention creates scattered results. If your focus is divided, if one moment you're filled with trust, and the next you're drowning in doubt, you send out a mixed signal to the universe. It's like trying to tune a radio while constantly spinning the dial. You catch fragments of the song here and there, but never clearly, never steadily. All you hear is static. Many of us live our lives in that static. We wake up with hope, then get lost in fear by midday. We hold a vision of what we want, only to sabotage it with anxious thoughts an hour later. We pray for peace, but we feed chaos with our constant attention to what's wrong. And the universe, ever faithful, simply mirrors that back to us. Not as punishment, but as reflection. It gives us a reality that matches our most consistent frequency, not our occasional moments of clarity, but the underlying tone we carry day after day. This is why understanding the observer effect is so life-changing. It reminds us that our attention is our most sacred resource. Every moment, you are choosing which version of your life to bring into being. Simply by where you place your focus, imagine your attention as a beam of light. When it's scattered, It's like a flickering candle barely illuminating a dark room. But when you focus it, it becomes a powerful laser, cutting through illusion and directing energy with precision. When you hold your vision steadily without chasing it, without needing it to appear instantly, something remarkable begins to happen. Reality starts to reorganize itself around you. The right people appear at the right time. Opportunities seem to flow effortlessly into your path. Even obstacles begin to shift or dissolve because you are no longer feeding them with your attention. I've experienced this in my own life, and I've seen it in the lives of others. There's always a point in the journey where you realize that it's not about doing more, fixing more, or trying harder. It's about holding steady. It's about choosing, moment after moment, to focus on the version of yourself and the version of reality you wish to inhabit, and then staying there, even when the external world hasn't caught up yet. This can be challenging. Your old patterns will try to pull you back. Your ego will whisper, "Look at the evidence. It's not working." But that's the test. The old timeline will always make one last attempt to grab your attention, because attention is what keeps it alive. If you can resist that pull, if you can hold your focus like a steady flame in the wind, you will feel something shift beneath the surface. You'll sense that the static is fading, that the noise is quieting, that a new reality is emerging. Remember this: what you consistently observe becomes your truth. So the question isn't just, what do I want? The real question is, where am I consistently placing my attention? If you can answer that honestly and choose with intention, you'll discover that you don't have to fight for change. You don't have to force the future into shape. You simply align your focus, and the universe does the rest. In the end, attention is love. When you give your steady, unwavering attention to the life you desire, it's like nurturing a seed with sunlight and water. You don't need to dig it up every day to see if it's growing. You just keep showing up, trusting, and letting the unseen forces do their quiet work. That's the true magic of the observer effect. And it's not magic at all. It's simply the natural law of creation, waiting for you to remember how powerful you've been all along. 6. Blind spots. The silent saboteurs. The most challenging obstacles on our path are not the ones we can see. They are the ones hidden deep beneath the surface, shaping our lives in ways we barely notice. These are our blind spots, the silent saboteurs that quietly hold us back. Even as we strive for growth and change, it's easy to believe that our external circumstances are the problem. We blame the job, the relationship, the economy, the timing. We tell ourselves, if only this thing out there would change, I'd finally be free. But the truth is far more intimate, and sometimes far more uncomfortable. What limits us most is not what's happening outside of us, but what's living unexamined inside of us. These blind spots are like invisible threads woven into the fabric of our daily lives. They show up as patterns we repeat over and over, patterns so familiar that we mistake them for truth. They are the quiet assumptions we never question, the automatic reactions we mistake for personality, the stories we've been telling ourselves for so long that they feel like reality. You might wake up every day visualizing abundance, saying affirmations, setting intentions for a life of freedom and joy. But if, beneath those hopeful words, your nervous system is still humming with fear, if your body still carries the vibration of scarcity and self-doubt, then that is the true signal you are broadcasting to the universe. And here's what's so important to understand. The universe does not respond to what you say. It responds to what you are. Think of it like a song playing from a radio. You can talk about playing beautiful music all you want, but if the station is tuned to static, static is what comes through. Your words may speak of love and abundance, but if your inner frequency is tangled in worry and lack, that is the music the world hears. This is why change often feels so frustrating. We work so hard to do the right things on the outside, new habits, new goals, new techniques, but if the inner wiring remains the same, the outer world eventually snaps back to match it. It's like repainting a house without fixing the cracks in the foundation. It might look better for a while, but the deeper instability is still there. The painful truth is that these blind spots are usually invisible to us. They are the water we swim in, so constant and familiar that we don't even notice they're there. It's not because we're weak or broken. It's simply because the mind is built to protect its own patterns. Even unhealthy ones can feel safe, simply because they are known. This is why awareness is the first step toward transformation. You can't heal what you can't see. But awareness isn't about judging yourself or labeling your blind spots as bad. It's about gently turning the light inward with compassion and curiosity, and beginning to notice what's been running beneath the surface. Start by asking yourself, what do I believe about myself when no one is watching? What energy am I carrying when I'm not trying to be positive or be spiritual? These quiet, honest moments reveal more about your true frequency than any vision board or affirmation ever could. You may discover that beneath your desire for success lies a deep fear of failure, or that beneath your longing for love lives a hidden belief that you're not truly worthy of it. And that's okay. These discoveries are not setbacks. They are revelations, invitations to meet yourself at a deeper level and to release what no longer serves you. The key is to meet these blind spots with gentleness, not force. Imagine shining a light into a dark room. You don't need to attack the darkness or fight it. You simply let the light in, and the darkness dissolves on its own. As you bring these unconscious patterns into awareness, something remarkable happens. Your frequency begins to shift naturally. Without struggle, you no longer have to fake it until you make it, because you are no longer split between what you say and what you truly feel. Your inner world begins to align with your outer actions, creating a coherence that the universe can clearly respond to. When your signal is clean and clear, life reflects that clarity back to you. The opportunities, relationships, and experiences that match your true essence begin to flow into your life, not because you force them, but because they are now in resonance with who you are becoming. So, the next time you feel stuck, instead of blaming the world or pushing harder on the outside, pause, breathe, turn inward. Ask yourself what unseen pattern might be quietly steering the ship, because the truth is, the greatest power you hold is not in changing the external world, but in bringing awareness to the internal one. When you do that, the outer world has no choice but to shift in response. Your blind spots don't define you. They are simply parts of you waiting to be seen, understood, and released. And when you finally see them for what they are, you realize they were never here to punish you, only to guide you home to a clearer, truer version of yourself. 7. 4 skills to clean your frequency. As you walk this path of transformation, you'll discover that your outer world is nothing more than a reflection of your inner frequency. When that frequency is clouded by fear, old stories, unresolved pain, your reality will mirror that back to you. It won't matter how many goals you set or how hard you work. The results will feel inconsistent, unstable, or fleeting. But when your frequency becomes clear, life begins to flow with a natural harmony. You stop feeling like you're swimming upstream. Opportunities seem to appear at just the right moment. Relationships deepen. Challenges still come, but you meet them with a steadiness that surprises even you. Cleaning your frequency is not about perfection. It's about alignment. It's about closing the gap between what you say you want and what you truly are on the inside. And there are 4 essential skills that help you do just that. Self-awareness, seeing without judgment. The first skill is simple, but it's not always easy. Awareness. Most of us go through life on autopilot, reacting to the world based on old patterns without ever realizing it. We get angry without seeing the fear underneath. We chase success without noticing the belief in our own inadequacy that's driving us. To clean your frequency, you must first see what is really there. And to do that, you must observe yourself with the same gentleness you'd offer a beloved friend. Self-awareness is not about judging your thoughts or trying to control them. It's about sitting quietly and saying, there's fear, there's doubt, there's joy, like clouds passing through the sky. You notice each one, but you don't chase them or try to change them. In this stillness, you begin to realize something profound. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who sees them. And when you rest in that awareness, the grip of old patterns begins to loosen on its own. Radical responsibility, owning your energy. The second skill is radical responsibility, and it will change everything. Most of us are conditioned to blame, to point to someone or something outside ourselves as the cause of our pain. My boss makes me feel stressed. That person ruined my day. If only the world would change, then I'd finally be happy. But here's the truth. External events don't create your frequency. They reveal it. Radical responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself for everything that happens. It means choosing to see every situation as a mirror, reflecting something inside you. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this showing me about me?" This simple shift transforms you from a powerless victim into an empowered creator. You stop waiting for the world to fix itself before you can feel peace. You realize that peace is something you generate from within, and when you do, the world naturally starts to reflect that new vibration back to you. Anchored states, holding your frequency, steady. The third skill is about stability. When you first begin to shift your inner world, there will be moments when you feel deeply aligned and moments when you feel completely lost. It's like learning to ride a bicycle, wobbly at first, then gradually more steady. Most people fall back into old patterns because they're waiting for external proof before they trust their new vibration. They think, "I'll believe I'm abundant when the money shows up," or "I'll feel loved when someone finally treats me right." But this approach reverses the natural order of things. The outer world always lags behind the inner world. If you abandon your new state, the moment challenges arise, you'll never give it time to stabilize. Anchored states are about holding your frequency no matter what, even when the evidence isn't there yet, even when doubt whispers in your ear. It's a deep, quiet trust in knowing that your job is to hold the signal steady so reality can eventually catch up. Release judgment, letting go of labels. The fourth and final skill is about releasing the mind's constant labeling. The ego loves to categorize everything. This is good. That is bad. This means I'm succeeding. That means I'm failing. But the quantum field doesn't work in straight lines. Sometimes, what feels like a breakdown is actually the very thing clearing the way for your breakthrough. Sometimes, what appears to be a loss is the opening for a deeper gain you can't yet see. When you stop labeling every experience as right or wrong, you free yourself to simply be present. You let life move through you without resistance. Like a river flowing effortlessly to the sea, releasing judgment doesn't make you passive. It makes you wise. It allows you to meet each moment with curiosity rather than fear, knowing that even the darkest night can carry you toward the dawn. Bringing it all together. When you practice these four skills, something remarkable begins to happen. Your inner world grows keener. Your frequency becomes clearer. And slowly, the gap between your intentions and your reality begins to close. Life stops feeling like a battle you have to win and starts feeling like a dance you get to enjoy. You realize that the true work was never about forcing the outer world to change. It was always about cleaning the signal you send to it. Because when your inner frequency is clear, the universe has no choice but to reflect that clarity back to you in ways more beautiful and effortless than you could have ever planned. 8. Change begins with identity. Real and lasting change never starts with what you do. It doesn't begin with the words you say, the goals you set, or even the dreams you hold in your mind. True transformation begins much deeper than that, at the level of identity. Your thoughts are like ripples on the surface of a lake. They come and go, shifting with your moods and the events of the day. But beneath that surface, there is something far more powerful, the deep, quiet waters of who you believe yourself to be. That belief, often hidden and unspoken, creates the frequency you live in, and that frequency shapes everything around you. You might think, I want to be free, I want to be abundant, I want to be loved. But if, deep down, your identity is still rooted in scarcity, unworthiness, or fear, the vibration you send into the world will reflect that inner truth, not your passing thoughts or words. The universe responds to what you are, not what you merely wish for. The mirror of reality. Imagine standing in front of a mirror. If you frown into it, the reflection cannot smile back at you. It doesn't matter how much you want to see a smile. The mirror has no choice but to return the image it is given. Life works the same way. Your external reality is the mirror, faithfully reflecting your internal state of being. If you continue to see yourself as the old you, the one who struggles, who doubts, who feels small, reality will keep showing you versions of life that match that identity. This is why so many attempts at change fail. We try to fix the reflection rather than the source. We chase new jobs, new relationships, new circumstances, hoping they'll make us feel different on the inside. But the reflection always snaps back to match the deeper identity we haven't yet questioned. The trap of becoming. Many spiritual teachings talk about becoming your best self. While this sounds inspiring, it can create a subtle trap. If you believe you must become someone entirely different, you may unconsciously reinforce the idea that you are not enough as you are now. You might spend years striving to reach a future version of yourself, always feeling just a little bit behind, always chasing a horizon you never quite reach. But here's the truth I've learned through my own journey. Shifting isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you truly are, beneath the layers of fear, conditioning, and survival strategies. There is a self that has always been whole, always been complete. This truest version of you doesn't need to be built or earned. It simply needs to be remembered. Think of it like clearing a foggy window. The view was always there, but you couldn't see it through the haze. Your inner work is not about creating the view, but about wiping away what was obscuring it. How identity shapes frequency. Your identity acts like a tuning fork for your life. Whatever frequency you hold within yourself will resonate outward, shaping the experiences, people, and opportunities that appear in your world. If your identity says, I am someone who struggles, your frequency will keep attracting struggle. If your identity says, I am unworthy of love, you'll unconsciously reject or sabotage relationships that don't match that belief. On the other hand, when you begin to anchor into a new identity, one rooted in truth and love, your external reality cannot help but shift to reflect it. This is not about forcing change or manipulating outcomes. It's about aligning with a version of yourself that already exists in another timeline. A version where the life you long for is natural and inevitable. The return home. I remember a time in my life when I thought I had to work endlessly to fix myself. I read every book, tried every practice, repeated endless affirmations, hoping they would finally make me feel whole. But no matter what I did, there was always a quiet voice inside whispering, it's still not enough. It wasn't until I began to question my identity that things began to change. I stopped asking, what do I need to do to become better? And I started asking, who do I believe I am? That question became the doorway. Slowly, I began to see that the person I had been trying to fix was never the real me. It was just a collection of old stories, other people's voices, past experiences, survival mechanisms that once kept me safe, but now kept me small. When I released those stories, I didn't become someone new. I simply returned to myself. And from that place of alignment, my frequency shifted without effort. Life began to reflect that new truth back to me. Not because I forced it to, but because reality always mirrors the vibration you hold. The invitation. So if you feel stuck or lost, don't just change what you're doing. Look deeper. Ask yourself, who am I believing myself to be right now? And who would I be without that story? You may discover that the version of you you've been waiting for isn't in the future at all. They're here, right now, beneath the layers you've outgrown. Shifting is simply stepping into that truth not with force, but with quiet recognition. When you align your identity with the frequency of who you really are, life transforms naturally, because in the end, you were never broken, and you never needed to become anything. You only needed to remember. 9. Coherence. The inner harmony. There is a kind of harmony that cannot be forced, a deep alignment that radiates from within and shapes everything around you. This state is called coherence, and it is one of the most powerful experiences you can cultivate on your journey of transformation. Most of us live fragmented lives. Our thoughts pull us in one direction, our emotions surge in another, and our bodies carry the tension of old wounds and unspoken fears. We try to think positively, while our hearts ache with doubt. We speak words of faith, while a quiet current of worry runs beneath them. This inner conflict creates noise like static on a radio, and the universe responds to that noise with a reality that feels just as chaotic and unclear. But when you bring your inner world into coherence, when your thoughts, emotions, and state of being move together as one, something remarkable happens. Your signal becomes clear, strong, and magnetic. And because the universe reflects the energy you emit, it responds to that clarity almost immediately. The power of alignment. Think of yourself as an orchestra. Your mind is one instrument, your emotions, another, your body yet another. When each plays its own tune, without listening to the others, the result is jarring and confusing. Even if each instrument is beautiful on its own, the overall sound is noise. But when the entire orchestra plays in harmony, when every note blends into a single song, the music becomes breathtaking. It flows effortlessly, touching everyone who hears it. That is what coherence feels like inside you. When your mind, heart, and body are in alignment, there is no longer a battle within. You are no longer leaking energy into internal conflict. Instead, all of you is moving in the same direction, and that unified frequency ripples out into the world. The shift isn't just energetic. You can feel it physically. Your breathing slows. Your body relaxes. Your thoughts become quieter, softer, more focused. You experience a profound sense of peace. Not because everything outside you is perfect, but because everything inside you is in harmony. Why we lose coherence. It's not difficult to understand why most of us rarely experience this state. From an early age, we are taught to divide ourselves. We hide certain emotions because we're told they're bad. We say words we don't truly mean in order to fit in or keep the peace. We deny our intuition because logic seems more acceptable or safe. Over time, these compromises create a kind of inner fragmentation. One part of you wants to move forward, while another part clings to the past. One part trusts life, while another part doubts it completely. And then we wonder why life feels like a constant uphill climb. The truth is, when you are split inside, your energy is split outside. The universe simply mirrors that division back to you, showing you relationships, jobs, and experiences that reflect your inner conflict. Coherence comes from presence, not force. Here's the paradox: you cannot force coherence. You can't bully your heart into alignment or demand that your mind instantly quiet down. Control only adds more tension. And tension is the opposite of harmony. Coherence arises from presence, from being fully here, fully aware, without trying to fix or manipulate anything. It begins in the small, quiet moments, sitting with yourself and breathing deeply, letting the thoughts come and go without clinging to them, allowing emotions to rise and fall without labeling them as good or bad. When you stop trying to control your inner experience, something miraculous happens. Your mind, emotions, and body naturally begin to synchronize, just as a group of instruments will fall into rhythm when they truly listen to one another. Your inner world harmonizes when you create space for it to do so. The universe responds instantly. When you are in coherence, your energy becomes unmistakable. It's like tuning a radio to a clear station. Suddenly, there's no more static, only pure sound. The universe doesn't need time to figure out how to respond to you. It immediately reflects the signal you're sending. Opportunities, insights, and synchronicities flow toward you with a kind of effortlessness that feels almost magical. But this isn't magic. It's simply the natural result of clarity. When your inner world is unified, there is nothing blocking the flow between you and life itself. A practice of gentle allowing coherence is not a destination you reach once and never lose. It's a practice, a daily return to yourself, again and again, especially when the world feels noisy or overwhelming. When you feel scattered, pause, close your eyes, and breathe into your heart. Ask yourself gently, what am I feeling right now? What am I thinking right now? What does my body need right now? Listen with kindness, not judgment. This act of listening is the first step toward bringing the parts of you back together. It's a way of saying to yourself, you are safe. You are allowed to be exactly as you are. And in that safety, alignment naturally arises. Living from coherence. When you begin to live from this place, you no longer chase outcomes with frantic energy. You no longer try to control every detail of life. Because you've experienced the power of inner harmony and know that the external world will follow. Coherence allows you to meet challenges with grace, to navigate uncertainty with trust, and to radiate a calm strength that others can feel even before you speak a word. And perhaps most beautifully, it reminds you that you don't need to fight for alignment. You only need to return to it, again and again. Because when you are coherent within yourself, you become a clear channel for life itself to flow through you. And in that clarity, you discover the truth. The universe has been waiting, all along, for you to simply come home to yourself. 10. The energy of stillness, where true strength rises. Most of us have been conditioned to believe that movement equals progress. We are taught that if we want to change our lives, we must constantly act, push, hustle, and chase, do more. They say, try harder, keep fighting. And so, we run endlessly. We fill our days with noise, our minds with strategies, our hearts with tension. Even our so-called spiritual practices can become just another form of striving endless affirmations. Méticuleux ritual, a desperate attempt to control the universe with sheer effort. But here's the quiet truth. I've come to know, stillness is not weakness. Stillness is power in its purest form. The illusion of constant motion. Imagine standing beside a lake on a windy day. The water is choppy and restless, the surface broken by countless ripples. If you try to see your reflection, you can't. The image is distorted, scattered, impossible to read. This is what happens when we live in constant action and noise. Our inner waters are stirred up by fear, urgency, and the belief that we must control every outcome. We can't see clearly. We can't hear the quiet guidance that is always there beneath the surface. But when the wind dies down and the lake becomes still, everything changes. The reflection appears. The water becomes like a mirror, revealing not only what is above it, but what lies beneath. Stillness in our lives works the same way. When we stop thrashing and allow ourselves to be, the truth rises gently to the surface. The answers we've been seeking are suddenly visible not because they were missing, but because our constant movement was hiding them from view. Stillness is not passivity. Many people fear stillness because they confuse it with giving up. They think, if I stop trying, won't everything fall apart? If I don't keep pushing, how will anything ever change? But stillness is not about doing nothing. It is about creating space for the right actions to emerge naturally, rather than forcing action from a place of fear or desperation. Think of a skilled archer. They do not fire the arrow while their hands are shaking and their breath is frantic. They pause. They center themselves. Only in that calm, steady space do they release, and the arrow flies straight and true. The same is true for you. When you act from stillness, your actions are infused with clarity and strength. When you act from chaos, even your greatest efforts scatter like arrows loosed in the dark. The universe works best in the space you allow. We often forget that we are not creating life alone. There are forces subtle, unseen, that are always working in our favor. But these forces cannot do their work if we are constantly interfering. It's like trying to bake bread while opening the oven door every 2 minutes to check if it's ready. You interrupt the very process that would have delivered what you wanted. Stillness is closing the door and trusting the heat to do its work. It's allowing the universe to arrange the pieces on your behalf. When you step back and stop micromanaging reality, you'll be amazed at how beautifully things begin to align on their own. The right people show up. The right opportunities flow in. The right timing reveals itself, not because you forced it, but because you finally allowed it. Where true strength is born, there is a quiet strength that rises from stillness. A strength unlike the frantic energy of control. It is grounded, unshakable, and deeply peaceful. I have felt this strength in my own life during some of my darkest moments. Times when everything around me seemed to be collapsing. When my mind screamed for me to do something, to fix, to fight, to run. But instead, I sat in silence. I breathed. I listened. And in that space, I discovered a power I didn't know I had. Not the power to control the storm, but the power to be the calm in its center. When you cultivate stillness, you realize that you don't need to meet chaos with more chaos. You don't need to outscream the noise of the world. You simply need to become so quiet, so steady, that life itself begins to rearrange around your inner peace. The invitation to pause. If your life feels tangled or overwhelming right now, I invite you to pause, even for a moment. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and feel the weight of your body being held by the earth. Imagine the surface of your inner lake becoming still. Let the ripples fade. Let the noise settle. In that silence, you will begin to sense the next step, not as a command, but as a gentle knowing. And when you move from that knowing, your actions will have a kind of quiet power that no amount of effort could ever produce. Stillness is not the absence of life. It is the womb from which new life is born. It is the space where the universe whispers its secrets and where your truest strength is revealed. So, when in doubt, pause, be still, and trust that while you rest, the currents of life are moving exactly as they should, carrying you toward the shore you've been seeking all along. 11. The true signal: the universe listens. To the universe is always listening, but not in the way most of us imagine. It does not respond to the words we speak out loud, or even to the silent wishes we hold in our minds. It listens to something far deeper, something we cannot fake or hide. The universe listens to our state of being. Every moment, whether we are aware of it or not, we are sending out a signal. That signal isn't shaped by what we say we want, or by the vision boards we create, or by the affirmations we repeat. It is shaped by what we are embodying right now, in this very breath, beyond words and intentions. It's easy to think that if we just say the right things or visualize hard enough, we will call in the life we desire. But have you ever noticed how sometimes you can say, "I'm fine," while every part of you is screaming inside? Or how you can speak words of love while quietly carrying resentment or fear beneath the surface? The universe doesn't hear your words. It feels your truth. It is like a finely tuned instrument, sensitive to the subtle frequencies you emit. And if there's a mismatch between what you say and what you embody, the universe responds to the embodiment, not the performance. You cannot trick life with positive words spoken over a foundation of doubt. You cannot pretend to be peaceful while your inner world is in turmoil and expect the outer world to reflect peace back to you. This is why so many people feel stuck, even though they are doing all the right things. They are focusing on surface-level actions while neglecting the deeper signal that never stops broadcasting, the unseen broadcast. Think of yourself as a radio tower. Even when you're silent, even when you're not trying, you are constantly broadcasting energy. That energy is made up of your deepest beliefs, your habitual emotions, and the stories you tell yourself when no one else is around. If you are carrying a vibration of scarcity, that is what goes out into the field, no matter how many times you say the word abundance. If you are holding on to anger or fear, that becomes part of your signal, even if you smile and act kind on the surface. The universe responds to this broadcast with perfect neutrality. It is not judging you or punishing you. It is simply reflecting back to you the energy you have been transmitting, like a mirror, faithfully showing you your own reflection. This is why deep inner work matters so much. It's not about becoming worthy of your dreams you already are. It's about aligning your inner world so that what you are broadcasting matches the reality you wish to experience. Becoming the frequency. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. This is one of the hardest truths to accept, but also one of the most liberating, because it means you no longer need to chase outcomes or manipulate circumstances. You don't have to try to convince the universe of your desires. You simply need to become the living embodiment of them. If you desire peace, then nurture peace within yourself. Not just as a fleeting thought, but as a consistent state of being. If you long for love, become love through your actions, your thoughts, your presence. If you wish for abundance, let your daily energy reflect trust in the infinite flow of life, rather than clinging to scarcity. When you do this, you are no longer sending mixed signals. Your inner world and outer actions align, creating a coherent, clear frequency. And coherence is magnetic. The universe responds to it instantly, because there is no contradiction to sort through, no static to dissolve. You cannot pretend your way there. It's tempting to think you can simply act as if to put on a mask of positivity or confidence and hope that reality will catch up. But embodiment is not pretending. It's not about plastering a smile over pain or forcing gratitude when you feel despair. True embodiment begins with honesty. It asks you to meet yourself exactly where you are, without judgment, to sit with your fear, your grief, your anger, not to indulge them, but to witness them fully so they can move through you. Only when you are willing to see yourself clearly can you begin to shift your energy authentically. When you clear away the noise, you make space for the frequency you truly wish to hold. This is why silence and stillness are such powerful practices. In the quiet, you can feel what's really there. You can tune into your inner signal and begin to bring it into harmony with your highest self. The mirror will always tell the truth. Reality is a mirror. It cannot lie. If you want to know what frequency you are holding, look at the patterns in your life, not as punishment, but as feedback. Ask yourself, what in my outer world is showing me something about my inner world? This question is not meant to create blame, but to empower you, because once you see the connection, you realize you have the power to change it, not by pushing harder on the outside, but by tending to the inside, living as the signal. The ultimate practice is to live as the frequency you desire, moment by moment, not to wait for the future, not to postpone joy or peace until circumstances give you permission, but to become the signal now to hold it in your thoughts, your breath, your actions, and your presence. When you embody that state fully, reality has no choice but to mirror it back to you, not as a reward, but as a natural reflection of who you have become. And perhaps the most beautiful part of all is this: when you align your inner signal with love, truth, and clarity, you don't just transform your own life, you become a beacon for others, a living example of what is possible. The universe listens to your state, and so do the people around you. And when they feel the coherence and authenticity in your energy, they are inspired to remember their own. So don't just speak your desires, be them. Because in the end, that is the only language the universe truly understands. The shift is already here in the end. A quantum shift isn't something you do. It's not a task to complete or a mountain to climb. It's not another goal to chase, nor a reward waiting at the end of your effort. A true shift is something you allow. You don't have to run after the future version of yourself, desperately trying to catch up to it. That version of you, the one who is calm, clear, abundant, free, already exists. It has been here all along, quietly waiting beneath the noise and stories you've been carrying. And the doorway to that version of you is not somewhere out there, far away in time or space. It is right here, in this very moment, always here, always available. The power of stopping. So stop for a moment. Just stop. Close your eyes, if you can. Breathe deeply. Feel the weight of your body, the rise and fall of your breath. Let the spinning of the mind settle like snow falling in a quiet forest. In this pause, you might notice something subtle, a soft hum beneath the chaos, a sense of stillness that was never lost, only overlooked. That stillness is you. It is the space where transformation naturally unfolds, without your interference, without your struggle. The world has taught you to keep reaching, to keep fixing, to keep doing. But life itself doesn't need your constant pushing to evolve. It needs your presence, your willingness to step aside and let the deeper intelligence of the universe move through you, becoming the shift. When you stop trying so hard to change the outer world, something miraculous happens. The outer world begins to change on its own. Reality is a mirror. It faithfully reflects the frequency you hold inside. As you shift your inner state not by force, but by allowing the reflection naturally adjusts, you no longer have to chase peace, you embody it. You no longer have to demand love, you radiate it. You no longer have to seek abundance, you become a living expression of it. And as you become, life responds, effortlessly. This is the great paradox. When you finally release the need to control, you discover that you were never powerless. The very act of letting go reveals the vast creative force that has been flowing through you all along. Life as a reflection. When you live this way, life ceases to be a relentless pursuit. It stops feeling like a race you can never win or a problem you must constantly solve. Instead, it becomes a mirror, a reflection of your inner harmony. You meet challenges, yes, but they no longer define you. You experience joy, but it doesn't slip away because it's no longer dependent on fleeting circumstances. Everything outside you simply becomes a feedback loop, showing you what is happening inside. And this feedback is never meant to judge or punish you. It's here to guide you, to help you return home to yourself again and again. The moment of recognition. If something within you stirred as you've been listening to these words, don't dismiss it. That resonance you feel, that quiet knowing in your chest, or that wave of emotion rising within you is not your imagination. It is the signal that the shift has already begun. Not tomorrow, not when conditions are perfect, not when you finally get it right. Here, Now, in this breath, the moment you sense it, you are already stepping into a new reality. Your only task is to keep returning to the present moment, and to trust the unfolding, an invitation to begin again. So pause once more. Take a slow, deep breath. Feel the stillness beneath the movement, the silence beneath the noise. This is where your power lives, not in effort, but in alignment, not in striving, but in surrender. Let yourself be here, fully, without rushing to the next thing. Because right here, right now, everything you've been seeking is already present. The future you long for is not ahead of you. It is already within you, waiting to be revealed. And as you remember this truth, you will see it reflected all around you, in the faces you meet, in the opportunities that arise, in the quiet ways life whispers, "Welcome home." The shift has already started, and it begins, as it always has, right here, right now.